Beneath 5,000 feet of solid ice lies a secret that rewrites everything we know. Frozen forests, ancient rivers. The fossilized remains of creatures that once walked through tropical jungles where nothing should survive. This is Antarctica, a continent that guards the most dramatic transformation in planetary history. 90 degrees below zero, winds that can strip flesh from bone in minutes. A wilderness so hostile that humans didn't set foot here until the 20th century arrived. But millions of years ago, this frozen wasteland was a paradise teeming with life. Palm trees swayed in warm breezes. Dinosaurs hunted beneath canopies of green. Then something catastrophic happened. An entire world vanished beneath eternal winter. This is the story of Earth's greatest metamorphosis. The world before ice. 300 million years ago, the planet you're standing on didn't exist as you know it. Every landmass on Earth had collided into a single supercontinent geologists call Pangaea. Imagine one enormous island surrounded by global oceans stretching to every horizon without interruption. Antarctica wasn't at the bottom of the world in this ancient configuration of continents. It sat much farther north, positioned where temperate climates nurtured forests instead of ice sheets. The land that would become our coldest continent enjoyed mild weather and abundant rainfall. Vast forests of seed ferns called Glossopteris blanketed the landscape in dense, prehistoric greenery. These weren't the trees we know today, but strange plants that preceded flowering vegetation. Their fossilized leaves would later become crucial evidence for understanding how continents drift across the planet. Insects the size of hawks buzzed through humid air between towering trunks and tangled undergrowth. Amphibians as large as crocodiles prowled through swamps, hunting for prey in murky waters. Reptiles were just beginning their evolutionary rise toward dominance over land, sea, and eventually sky. The climate was warm and wet, perfect for supporting complex ecosystems across enormous geographic ranges. Rivers carved through the terrain, depositing sediments that would become rock layers containing secrets. Volcanic activity shaped mountain ranges that have long since eroded into dust and memory. This was Antarctica before ice, a living, breathing world that seems impossible when you look at satellite images of the frozen continent today. When continents walked. Around 200 million years ago, Pangaea began to fracture along invisible seams beneath the surface. Tectonic forces that had pushed the continents together now started pulling them apart with inexorable patience. The supercontinent split into two massive fragments, Laurasia in the north and Gondwana in the south. Antarctica remained embedded in Gondwana, connected to South America, Africa, India, Australia, and the Arabian Peninsula. This southern supercontinent functioned as a single, enormous ecosystem where species could migrate freely. Dinosaurs walked from what would become Madagascar into future Australia without crossing ocean barriers. For over 100 million years, Gondwana remained relatively intact while life flourished across its expanse. The age of dinosaurs reached its peak as these magnificent reptiles dominated every ecological niche. Massive sauropods browsed on vegetation, while predatory theropods hunted in coordinated packs through forests. Antarctica, during this period, hosted its own unique dinosaur species adapted to the region's conditions. Cryolophosaurus, a meat-eating predator with a distinctive crest, stalked through forests that existed near the South Pole even then. The climate was cooler than equatorial regions, but still mild enough to support year-round life. Then, about 180 million years ago, Gondwana itself began breaking apart into separate continents. South America drifted west. Africa rotated north. India embarked on a collision course with Asia. Australia slowly separated and moved toward its current position in the southern hemisphere. Antarctica drifted south, carried by the movement of tectonic plates, toward the bottom of the world. As it approached the South Pole, the climate grew progressively colder with each passing millennium. The forests that had thrived for millions of years began to die as temperatures dropped. Ice appeared first in the interior highlands, then spread outward like a frozen plague, consuming everything. Rivers froze solid. Lakes became permanent ice. The animals that couldn't adapt or migrate faced extinction. Eventually, a massive ice sheet buried the entire continent beneath frozen water miles thick. The transformation took millions of years, but from a geological perspective, it happened relatively quickly and completely. The unknown land. For most of human history, Antarctica existed only as speculation and philosophical necessity in the minds of scholars. Ancient Greek thinkers like Aristotle reasoned that a massive southern landmass must exist to balance the known continents of the northern hemisphere. They called this theoretical land Terra Australis Incognita, the unknown southern land, and mapmakers drew it on charts despite having absolutely no proof it existed. Some imagined it as a paradise full of resources and riches waiting for discovery. Others warned it might be an inhospitable wasteland where no human could survive the conditions. For centuries, explorers sailed south searching for this mythical continent without finding definitive evidence. They encountered ice, storms, and seas so rough that vessels could be destroyed in minutes. Many turned back, convinced nothing could exist in such hostile waters beyond the edge of civilization. In 1773, British explorer James Cook crossed the Antarctic Circle during his second voyage of discovery. He sailed farther south than any European before him, navigating through treacherous ice fields and fog. He came within miles of the continental landmass, but never actually saw Antarctica through the weather. Cook's observations convinced him a frozen continent probably existed, though he doubted it held any value. He wrote that no nation would benefit from claiming such a desolate, frozen territory. How wrong that prediction would prove to be as the centuries passed and technology advanced. Finally, in 1820, 3 separate expeditions reported sighting Antarctica within months of each other. Russian explorer Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen, British naval officer Edward Bransfield, and American sealer Nathaniel Palmer all claimed to have seen the continent first. Historians still debate who deserves credit for the actual discovery of the frozen continent. None of the 3 expeditions managed to land because conditions were too dangerous. But after millions of years hidden from human eyes, Antarctica had finally revealed itself to the world. Footprints on frozen ground. Seeing Antarctica from a ship deck and actually setting foot on the ice were entirely different challenges. The coast was protected by massive ice shelves, towering bergs, and unpredictable weather that could turn deadly. No explorer wanted to become the first person to die on the newly discovered continent. In 1895, Norwegian explorer Karsten Borchgrevink led an expedition that approached the continent with determination and courage. After careful reconnaissance, Borchgrevink and his crew made the decision to attempt the first landing. They rowed small boats toward the shore through floating ice that could crush their vessels. When they finally stepped onto Antarctic soil, they became the first confirmed humans to stand on the continent. The moment was so significant that members of Borchgrevink's team actually argued about who would step onto the land first, each wanting to claim that historic distinction for themselves. They collected rock samples as proof of their achievement, then retreated to their ship before conditions worsened. The landing lasted only hours, but it proved humans could physically reach Antarctica and return alive. Borchgrevink returned 4 years later in 1899 with a 10-man team and far more ambitious goals. They planned to stay through an entire Antarctic winter, something no human had ever attempted before. They established a small camp and prepared to endure months of darkness and cold that would test human endurance to its absolute limits. Temperatures plummeted to negative 40 degrees Celsius, cold enough to freeze exposed skin within seconds. The team supplemented their provisions by hunting seals and penguins, learning to survive off the land. During the long, dark winter months, they conducted scientific observations and collected data about this alien environment. When summer finally returned and their ship came back to retrieve them, all 10 men were still alive. They had survived the first winter ever spent by humans on the Antarctic continent. Their success proved that with proper preparation and determination, humans could establish a presence in even the most extreme environments on Earth. The race to the end of the world. Landing on Antarctica was just the beginning. The real prize lay deep in the interior, the geographic South Pole, the axis point at the bottom of the world. Reaching it would require crossing hundreds of miles of unexplored ice in conditions that made coastal Antarctica seem hospitable. The South Pole sits at an elevation of nearly 3,000 meters above sea level. Temperatures there can drop below negative 80 degrees Celsius during winter. Oxygen is thinner at that altitude, making every breath require extra effort and every physical task exponentially harder. Whiteout conditions are common, where blowing snow and overcast skies eliminate all visual references to the horizon. In a whiteout, you can't tell up from down or forward from backward. Explorers could walk in circles for hours, burning precious calories and freezing slowly, convinced they were making progress. Despite these horrifying conditions, multiple expeditions in the early 20th century raced toward the pole. British explorer Robert Falcon Scott and Norwegian adventurer Roald Amundsen both launched attempts to become the first human to stand at the southernmost point on Earth. The competition became one of history's most legendary contests between human ambition and nature's cruelty. Both teams hauled supplies across vast ice sheets, navigated crevasses that could swallow entire expeditions, and pushed their bodies beyond normal limits. Dogs, ponies, and pure determination pulled sleds loaded with food, fuel, and scientific equipment. Amundsen reached the South Pole first on December 14, 1911, planting the Norwegian flag at the bottom of the world. Scott arrived 5 weeks later to find Amundsen's tent already standing at the pole. The British expedition started their return journey knowing they had lost the race. Tragedy struck Scott's team during the return trip. Extreme weather, inadequate supplies, and exhaustion claimed the lives of all 5 men. Their frozen bodies were discovered months later by a search party, along with journals documenting their final days. Their sacrifice demonstrated the extreme price humans sometimes pay for pushing boundaries and seeking glory. Antarctica still guards the secrets of its tropical past beneath miles of ancient ice. Every fossil discovered there reminds us that nothing on this planet remains unchanged forever. Continents drift, climates transform, species adapt or vanish, and humans, driven by curiosity stronger than fear, will always venture into the unknown, even when it might kill them. In Antarctica's frozen silence, we find both Earth's deep history and our own restless future.